What can you tell me about this area of the barn? As we're starting to get closer to the back of the barn, what are we looking at how this was used?
This was the original 16 stanchions they had in here. If you followed the line of that, this was
Those there.
Yeah, this was in here first.
Okay.
And we just had a sliding roller door there you could open up. And that driveway is 14 feet wide, and then there was no ceiling or floor above it.
Yep.
But where this was, the way you see it now is the way it was on the overhead. But it had 8 stanchions on each side here, so they had 16 stanchions. And the cows could come in that door over there, walk along the end and come in this row of stanchions, or they could come in this row of stanchions. They were signed.
That was to start with, right?
Yes. And then on that last 14 foot by 28 or whatever it is, was kind of pins with a manger coming out to the east side. And that's where you could feed hay in. A little unusual, but it worked. And then later, that's you guys made that into stanchions later, didn't you? When you did this modification over here?
No, somewhere it was in between.
Oh.
Because when that last row there was put in, the cows faced the west wall.
Oh, that's
and
right.
there was a walkway in front.
Yes, yes.
And the bull always stood in that corner.
Yeah.
With his head up, or his neck up, high as you could get it in the stanchion, and as big as you could make the stanchion.
Didn't you take
He
the wood
either
off?
stand in the gutter or on the other side of the gutter.
Yeah, that's
He
how
was
long
a
it
big
was.
bruiser. We had 2 of them like that. Big suckers, but not mean or anything.
No, good.
Only one of them that I remember could, we had the tire, my dad poured it full of cement with a loop in it,
Oh, yeah.
and tied the chain to it out in the orchard.
No
over there.
chain?
And he could move that whole thing. So I've watched him do it one time. Holy cow, how strong can you get your nose? You know, that ain't that big in between there.
Yeah, the ring in the nose and the chain.
I know we had one bull that pulled his ring out and Dad put it in from the other way.
Ooh.
He just take his jackknife and rip it out of his pocket. He always had it sharp.
Yeah.
And well, for that one, he just stuck it down through the top of his snout. And he had them rings were probably what, like that big around, maybe?
Yeah, a little bigger.
Stick it in there, and then you had to, they overlap each other. And then
Oh,
one
yeah.
side had threads in it, and you could put a screw through that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what held it.
Just kind of
And
go like that.
When you got a bull that big, or any animal for that matter, when they're already bleeding and hurting from the knife, then you stick that thing through there and try to get that dinky little screw in there.
Yeah. And it was a kind of brass or whatever it was,
Yes,
copper
yes,
or whatever.
yep.
So it wasn't magnetized either. You know, so you
Yeah.
couldn't have a magnetized screwdriver to
Yeah.
hold that screw. You had to figure that out. And that thing was what? 1/16 of an inch in diameter, that
It
screw?
wasn't very big. It wasn't not very big. No, it worried me. I could just see what Dad would have said if it would have got dropped in the
He would
hay
have
or
said,
silage.
oh no, I dropped that screw.
That's on me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right there.
Find that real quick for him, will you?
Come on, hurry up. I can't hold this big old bull.
So later on in life, this turned into
Calf
calf?
barn. We would start over here with our baby calves. They'd be tied up there
Yep.
in a stanchion line on both sides.
Yep.
Put a strap around their neck and then tie them to the bottom. They'd have their little place to eat, get fed. And then when they get on dry feed, then this gate would go across here. And water there they could utilize.
oh, yep, there's the water still there.
Yep.
And manger for them to eat their grain and hay. And then this gate and the other one's gone, would fold together here. And so you could have 4 calves in there, and they'd have a place to eat and drink. They'd have bedding in there. And then the next pen have the same setup with 4 more calves, only a little bit bigger calves.
Oh, so the 4 just stayed together. You didn't separate them all. Because now everybody has calf hutches.
Well, this thing went across here.
Yep.
And the guy wire is gone, but then you just slide it up to here. 4 calves here, 4 calves there, and then you'd have 8 or 10 down there. Those
Yep.
weren't stalled. Those were just
free.
open bedding along the edge.
Yeah. Okay.
And they had their water run the other end.
So yeah, saying down here the bedding would be down along this area down here.
There's a curb there.
Yep, which is there's the curb, but it is busted out down here.
No, I'm lying to you.
No, it looks like there used to be a curb right here.
Yep, there was.
Yeah.
And now what I'm seeing is,
Oh.
we did have stalls for every calf. They're a little bit bigger.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the boards right here was the dividers for all of the calves down here.
And then the header board was up about here. So to match that one, the 2x4 would come up here and one here, and then we put a header board across here.
Yeah.
They didn't have to go all the way to the beams.
Okay.
And then as they got a little older, then we'd move them to the other side, and they had stalls there at one time, and then they had that full length of the barn, 47 or 48 feet, whatever it is,
Oh, okay.
width-wise.
Pretty much after they were weaned off the bottles.
Yeah. Well, and them calves there, they were off the bottles there already, the first ones.
Oh, okay.
But we just keep them separated for competition for size.
Yep. Yep. Huh.
Metal strap?
That's like electrical tape or something.
Duct tape, or electric tape.
Yep. So my uncle just asked my dad if he knew what this board is about.
Oh.
I'm guessing my uncle already knows, and there's a story behind it. There is.
That's off the old tool shed.
Oh.
That's off the west end. And we had too many cats and too many kittens. And so we have to reduce the problem. So we're going to take the tomcats out of action for a while. And Dad had a L.C. Smith 12-gauge shotgun, double barrel. And Brother Frank said, I'll take care of the tomcats. But he wanted to know what kind of shot pattern he was at 20 feet or 30 feet. So he shot a hole in the tool shed wall. Oh, he says, okay, I can be a little farther away than that.
A little.
But you can see what kind of hole that hole made in there.
What gauge shotgun do you know?
12 gauge.
So yeah, he's saying my Uncle Frank wanted to know what pattern the 12-gauge shotgun was shooting. This board was on the shed, machine shed?
Yeah, shop.
Shop.
That's what, about 3 inches at least.
So to find the pattern, he wanted to shoot some. So he shot the machine shed board and put a hole in it. For some reason, Uncle Rich decided to keep that as a memory.
And then, you know, I don't know how much later it was, on the north end there, where the silo, well, not where the silo was, this way from it, there went a prime tomcat. Boom! Splattered him all over the cement foundation wall. So that was one less Tom.
Oh, jeez.
He just pulled one trigger, he didn't pull two.
Good thing. He probably would have been laying on his back if he had pulled them both at once.
Oh, gee. Yeah, so I was saying that how good the shape the barn's in overall. I mean, it's still nice and straight, but you get to here, and you got a treated 6x6 and then a treated 6x8, it looks like right here. And these are, again, bolted together. Then they have a couple of fir 4x10s.
Yeah.
So they've got notched out the set to fit underneath the original floor. And then another treated, looks like a 6x8 right here. That's anchored down into the concrete where the whole feeder manger is. So, yeah. Again, and it goes all the way up. You can see the original beam right up there. I can't zoom in because of the type of camera I've got. It's a little bit rotten there on the main upright. So
we had a leak in the roof, and it was just running down, part of it on the inside, part of it on the outside. somewhat neglect on my part. But then we had a water trough right in here, the cattle could drink out
Oh,
of.
okay.
And that got wet. And that was not good for the bottom of the timbers.
Oh,
There, and then we put that one in because that's where they cut it off and joined the two, made a continuation to the end, if you will. And put some new 2x12s up here, 1.5 or whatever.
yeah, right there.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think they did a pretty decent job of,
And what made you decide to do that?
well, they
Was
were
it the-
deteriorating.
Too much hay in the Haymouw?
No,
That wasn't that one?
not at that time, no.
Oh, okay. That's a different story.
Yeah. Well, that's on the other side of that timber down there is, I think you can still see the,
Splitting the beam.
yeah. I put this piece underneath it,
Oh, right here.
yes, and then if you look on the other side, well, don't watch yourself there.
Yeah, I'm not gonna look. Oh yeah, here's another 4x6.
Yep.
So this wasn't failing, but these started to fail.
Yes, yeah, because the split, this other timber was splitting on the other side.
Okay.
And so I had to force them in there. I got them started in there, and then I got the right length. It's about this far to go yet on the manger floor. I wasn't up against the main timber yet.
Yeah.
And so then I tacked a 2x6 down there so it wouldn't run away, and I could whack it in with a big hammer.
Yeah. Wedge it in nice
Yeah.
and tight.
It took some doing, but I wanted to save it, so I did it.
So yeah, you're saying these started to fail because there's too much. Well, you
Too
found
much
out
hay.
you
This-
found out they're failing because there's too much hay up
It
above.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
And this should have had better support underneath it,
Right.
but the barn was built for loose hay. And so you don't get near the weight that you
don't
do
get-
with bales.
Yeah.
And we had 3-wire bales or 3-string bales, alfalfa from eastern Washington.
100-pounders.
Yes. And so when you stack them 8, 9 high,
Yeah.
it should have been spread out more, but that was partly my fault. I said, well, don't put it too far from the door, boys, and I left.
Yeah.
And they unloaded 2 loads of hay in there.
Ooh.
So here's where the old silo sat. just outside.
Yes.
Oh, was that the door into the silo? Oh no.
Right here. Yeah.
Yep.
And then the silo was sitting out there, and then cement floor up to the silo, and then the sides were all enclosed by
Silo
wood.
chute, they call it.
Silo chute.
Yeah.
So then there was a ladder on the silo chute on the side going up
East
next
side.
to it, and you climb up that thing, and wherever you're throwing at it, Dad had built us what we called a silage cart, and it had wheels went by.
Yeah, something like that.
Big,
Steel
on
wheels.
2 big ones, and then caster wheels on the other side. And you fill that up, and you'd have to figure out how much to put in it, depending on how many cows you were milking.
Yeah.
And you go around and you pull it right up here. Well, when we changed the barn around, then there was a change that we had to pull it up onto the
Oh, okay.
where the cement we poured. So that made it tougher. And then take it around, feed the other animals, especially when we had the cows at the third row.
Oh, yeah. You couldn't get
You
in
had
there
to
with
get,
a
it was
car.
right at the barn door where you would go out,
Yeah.
and you had to make a turn and then go uphill with it.
You could get in there with it?
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
It was a tight squeeze. Yeah, and at the other end where it was connected by the drive-through,
Sure.
where we had the bull, John and I and the neighbor kids, we'd ride our bikes on Saturday. It'd be cold, crummy weather outside, so we'd ride our bikes on the inside, take different routes and stuff, and open that roller door where the bull was, and Dad had his chain to the foundation of the building, just to be safe.
Yeah.
And well, he couldn't quite reach some of the hay, got pushed out too far while he was eating. So he gets down on his front knees and he's reaching out there with his tongue, pulling it in. Here I come around the corner and run over his tongue. I was just as surprised as he was. 'cause
Yeah,
I come out of the driveway blind and, oh, there he is down on his knees stretching. Oh, boy.
Well, I got my third battery pack. I'll walk over. This is what we were talking about earlier in the new milk parlor. This is a manure pit underneath that plate. Still pretty solid. Walk in. This is the loafing shed that they built in 1967. It's an old grinding wheel that they found in, I guess, in the original barn. So I'm not sure how it still turns. It has original leather, well, I don't know original, but it's got a leather strap on there for a belt. I'm not sure how. Oh, it's a foot pedal. Check this out. It's a foot pedal right here. That still works. That's over center. I guess it wants to go backwards. Have to get it to rock a little bit. And there's your stone right here. Still works. That's as far as I know, original paint. Anyway, let's go this way. Here's the manger of the newish. That's where you feed your cows. All the boards are cut on this side, but they're still there on the other side. I mean, here's one of the originals right here. Loafing area. There you go. Looks like you can get 3 cows. 1, 2, and 3. There's still shavings. The shavings are still here. Probably some of the shit too. Oh, looks like they got a leak in the roof here. I don't know if you can see that. Dark spot that's wet. There's a little leak up there somewhere. Still shavings. I don't know if this is from the I can't remember when they stopped farming. I'll have to ask. Early 80s, I believe. There's still a pile of shavings here. So you got one row. I'm standing in wide enough to scrape with a tractor and scraper. There's another hole for the manure pit right there. And all these cuts. Oops, here we go. Here's the cuts that we were talking about when we were outside behind the barn. The guy traveled across the country with a concrete cutter. He would cut that, and that'd be your anti-slip. So he only went down the main alleyways, it looks like. Just down through here. Here's the next aisle for loafing. We'll move on. The third row. And then we'll get down here to a fourth row. I think that's a Ford Galaxy underneath that cover. Set of duals. I think they're for this tractor here. This is a white 285 Field Boss. There you go. I'd have to ask, but I'm pretty sure this was sold by Everson Equipment, which isn't far from here. So here we got the big door. We were standing on the other side of that talking about the silo. Well, here's a silo, the concrete one anyway. They built the barn kind of around it. Here's the corner of the original barn, right there. Up there, here's an old roof. There's an old galvanized gutter that's rotted out. Let's take a look. I don't know if you can see this. There's still some rotting silage in there. Now there's daylight, or it's empty. Where's my hand? Right about here. So that's about what, 8 feet up, 7 feet up, somewhere. So there's about 7 foot of old rotten silage in the silo yet. And it's getting dark. Sun's starting to set. You can't see a thing. All right, let's go back to where there is some light. Because again, I'm sure they're telling stories.